Hello everyone, I'm Emily Tang. Today I'll be talking about the relationship between plant nutrition and plant quality. Plant quality includes such traits as appearance, nutritional content, and sensory and technical qualities such as firmness, texture, and shelf life. Many different properties and factors are responsible for the highly complex trait of plant quality. Consequently, many methods and techniques can be employed to improve plant quality. Only recently has the role of nutrition in affecting plant quality been claiming attention in research. In the 1990s, increased awareness of the lack of balanced nutrition in many countries generated interest in finding methods to increase nutritional content in plants. The other aspects of quality, such as appearance and sensory and technical qualities, are of interest to researchers to improve processing and market value of plant products. This lecture will discuss the many properties that have a role in plant quality and also the factors that control them. It will also discuss some particular traits of plant quality and how nutrition affects these traits in more detail. First, we will discuss the properties and factors that affect plant quality. Next, we will briefly discuss the relationship between nutrition and crop yield. Then we will move on to how nutrition affects the appearance of plant products, in particular size, shape, texture, and color. Finally, we will discuss how plant nutrition affects chemical composition of plant products. We'll examine in more detail the nutrients and toxic elements in plants. Plant quality is defined as the sum of individual properties that enable a plant or plant product to meet the requirements of the user. The various physical and chemical properties of the plant are what constitute a plant's quality, while the various genetic and physiological factors are what control a plant's quality. Some examples of physical properties of plants are leaf type, flower color, fruit type, number of leaves, fruit size, and plant height. These are the main properties that determine appearance and therefore determine marketable yield of plants and plant products. Some examples of types of chemicals in plants that are generally quality improving are essential nutrients, carbohydrates, essential amino acids, lipids, and vitamins. There are also quality reducing compounds such as heavy metals and oxalates. These properties determine nutritional and sensory quality. Genetic factors determine plant quality also. Variation in plant species and cultivars gives rise to variation in quality. For example, certain cultivars of cherries are sweeter than others and consequently preferred by consumers for fresh fruit. Also, the different plant organs and tissues of a plant product have differing qualities. An example of this will be the differing levels of nutrients and essential amino acids in the bran versus the endosperm of cereal grains. To improve quality, both breeding and exogenous factors can be used and manipulated. Either conventional or transgenic breeding methods can be employed. Modifying fertilization, pest control, and production practices can dramatically influence the quality of plant products. Natural factors such as the inherent soil fertility, climate, and pest pressure on the crop also affect plant quality. It is important to note the relationship between nutrient supply and yield. While nutrient supply may influence quality traits, it also influences crop yield. However, yield and quality don't necessarily increase synchronously. In other words, increasing nutrient supply doesn't necessarily equate to both increasing yield and quality. There are three possible scenarios in the relationship between maximum quality and maximum yield with increasing nutrient supply. In this figure from Marschner's Mineral Nutrition of Higher Plants, these scenarios are illustrated. Curve 1 shows maximum quality and maximum yield obtained at the same time. This is actually not a common situation and more of an exception than the rule. Curve 2 shows maximum quality obtained before maximum yield is obtained. And Curve 3 shows maximum quality obtained after maximum yield is obtained. Curves 2 and 3 occur most frequently in crops. For example, higher levels of nutrient supply are needed to obtain high gluten concentrations in baking wheat that are needed for maximum yield, so it follows Curve 3. We will now discuss the relationship between plant nutrition and appearance. Appearance is an especially important component of plant quality in fresh fruits and vegetables and ornamentals. This is because marketing standards and consumer purchases of these products are based mainly on appearance. The nutrition that the plant receives has an effect on various appearance parameters such as size, shape, form, texture, and color. Adequate size and uniform size distribution are important in fruits and vegetables. Nitrogen can play a major role in size. The rate of nitrogen fertilizer and also the form of nitrogen supplied influences product size because it affects the source strength in the plant. Increased nitrogen supply has been shown to result in increased fruit size of gala apples. In tomatoes, researchers found that the nitrogen supplied in the form of ammonium sulfate fertilizer favored flower formation and increased number of fruits, but reduced the average single fruit weight when compared with nitrogen supplied as potassium nitrate. Other nutrients that affect the transport of assimilates from the source to the sink and therefore affect sink strength also affect size. Potassium has been shown to increase fruit size in both apples and bananas in studies reviewed by Lester et al. Shape and form of fruits and vegetables are other important appearance traits that are affected by plant nutrition. This is again due mainly to market and consumer preferences of particular shapes and forms. Shape and form are mostly fixed genetically by the cultivar grown. This figure shows the different shapes of different cultivars of apples. Environmental factors and cultural practices also affect shape and form. Soil texture, water supply, nutrient supply, and timing of irrigation and fertilization are some examples. In potatoes, as shown in this figure from Krause and Marschner, change in nitrogen supply affects potato shape. Fluctuating nitrogen supply causes malformation and knobby tubers. Texture is determined by the structural, physical, and chemical properties of a product. Firmness is one of the most important parameters of texture. There are many examples of how particular nutrients affect texture. Nitrogen in the form of urea sprays can increase apple fruit weight but also decrease firmness due to a smaller percentage of the fruit's volume being cell wall material. Increased potassium supply can also increase firmness in apples, kiwi, and nectarines. This is likely due to a simultaneous increase in fruit tissue pressure potential with the accumulation of potassium and other osmolytes such as sugars. Calcium is often associated with fruit firmness. Calcium sprays can increase fruit firmness and delay fruit softening during storage because it improves the cross-linkage of pectins in the middle lamella of cell walls and also preserves membrane integrity. Another appearance parameter, color, is again important in flowers, fruits, and vegetables because of consumer preference. The rates and types of nutrients applied can affect color. Green in plants is generally due to high chlorophyll concentrations and is usually achieved with high rates of nitrogen. Red is generally due to high anthocyanin concentrations in conjunction with low chlorophyll concentrations. Anthocyanin concentration can be decreased by high rates of nitrogen, but can be increased by increased rates of calcium, potassium, and magnesium. Decreased anthocyanin concentrations in the skins of gala apples with increased foliar applications of nitrogen has been demonstrated. On the other hand, increased calcium, potassium, and magnesium has been shown to increase blush in L-star apples. We have discussed some of the ways nutrition affects several different appearance parameters in plants. To conclude, here are some additional examples of particular nutrient deficiencies causing appearance issues. Calcium deficiency affects shoot tips, young and inner leaves, and fleshy fruits because calcium transport in the phloem is negligible. Shown here are some examples of problems this can cause: leaf tip burn in lettuce and bract edge burn in poinsettias. Boron deficiency can cause heart and crown rot, as shown in the picture, and loosened and brown heads of cauliflower. It can also cause flower deformation and discoloration. Potassium deficiency can cause potato discoloration as increased potassium increases citrate concentration, which in turn inhibits phenol oxidase, one of the causal factors of discoloration. We will now discuss how nutrition affects plant quality by influencing the chemical composition of the plant. Chemical components that can be affected include nutrients, toxic elements, bioavailability of elements, nitrogen compounds, carbohydrates, lipids, and vitamins. In this lecture, we will be covering nutrients and toxic elements, but keep in mind that there are many other substances influence that are important to plant quality. Nutrients in foods are important mainly because plant products supply humans and animals with essential nutrients in food. All the elements essential for plant growth, plus several other elements, are essential for humans and animals. Getting adequate amounts of these nutrients prevents mineral deficiency diseases and also reduces the risk of chronic diseases. Achieving proper nutrition is a challenge for certain populations in the world. There are many ways humans get enough nutrients in their diet. Dietary diversity is often just not possible, though. Supplementation and fortification in the diet also helps, but is often very high cost or runs into issues with low bioavailability of the nutrients. A more promising strategy is biofortification, which has proven to be a more sustainable and cost-effective method. Two types of biofortification are agronomic and genetic. Agronomic biofortification is the use of agronomic practices to increase concentration and bioavailability of plant nutrients. Genetic biofortification is the use of traditional or transgenic plant breeding to increase concentration and bioavailability of new plant nutrients. To illustrate some biofortification strategies, we will talk about iron and zinc deficiencies. Up to 2 billion people may be affected by hidden hunger with iron and zinc deficiencies in their diet. Therefore, many studies have aimed to increase iron and zinc in important plant food products using various biofortification strategies. Some agronomic strategies studied included varying levels of soil and foliar applications of iron and zinc, and also application of iron and zinc at differing times during crop cycles in grains and soybeans. Increased concentrations of iron are difficult to increase simply by increasing iron fertilization, due to limited availability of chelators for phloem transport. Increased zinc fertilization can increase zinc concentrations in the product, but timing of application is critical. For both iron and zinc, the plant part where the increase in concentration occurs is also a critical component. For example, it is important that zinc concentration in wheat endosperm is increased because this is the most commonly eaten part in many countries where zinc deficiency is widespread in humans. Genetic strategies are also commonly studied with the aim of increasing iron and zinc concentrations in plant products. Research has shown that increasing the expression of ferritin genes in rice and soybean increases endosperm concentration of iron. Other researchers have proposed that the introduction of genes at specific loci or stimulating leaf senescence could increase zinc concentrations in grains. On the opposite end of the spectrum of plant nutrients is the problem of toxic elements in plant food products. Cadmium, arsenic, mercury, and lead are some of the elements that are present in some plant food products that can pose health risks if excess levels are consumed. Many factors lead to elevated concentrations of these toxins in food. The soil may have high concentrations of these elements. Soil can be contaminated with these elements through human activities. There can be high soil-to-plant transfer of these elements or high transfer of these elements into the harvested organ of the plant. Or there can be direct contamination of the plants by soil, air, and dust. We will highlight one element, cadmium, which is a major problem mainly due to its high soil-to-plant transfer in conjunction with its high human but low plant toxicity. The concentration of cadmium in leafy vegetables and root crops is generally higher than the concentration in fruits and seeds. One problem is that cadmium is often present in phosphorus fertilizers, which leads to farmers inadvertently fertilizing their crops with it. Some strategies to decrease plant uptake of cadmium include agronomic practices such as liming or decreasing nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizer rates. Liming has had mixed results in decreasing cadmium uptake. Decreasing nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilization has been shown to decrease cadmium uptakes in plants. For comprehensive review on this subject, consult the paper by McLaughlin et al. From 1999. To summarize, today we talked about how nutrition affects plant quality. Nutrient supply can affect crop yield, product appearance, nutritional content, and levels of toxic elements in plants, just to name a few. The methods that can be used to increase plant quality by altering plant nutrition is not as simple as increasing or decreasing specific nutrients. Both agronomic and genetic practices can be used to influence plant quality. Every strategy will have its own disadvantages and advantages as plant quality is complex and is affected by many properties and factors. The references used in creating this presentation are listed on this slide and the next slide. Thank you for listening to this presentation. On the following few slides are some review questions to test your learning of this material.